Okay, so this time we're going to be showcasing an adventurer win. Now, adventurer is the starting class. He is, I guess, the boring class to a lot of people, but me personally, I have a lot of fun playing the adventurer. I think that there's a certain just charm and enjoyment that comes from playing with whatever you're given. He starts off with literally no gear whatsoever, except a couple health potions. Pretty bland, but at the very least, you know that whatever it is that you're given is going to make the run interesting because you have to play with basically anything, since literally anything is going to be better than his starting short sword. So I actually cut this video down quite a lot because I do blow through it. Like, you'll see my gameplay is happening pretty fast because when I'm sleep deprived, I'm not really thinking that much. But what does end up happening is this one actually ends up being longer than the first one I posted, solely because of the fact that I'm so tired that I end up backtracking through the dungeon like 3 or 4 times on both stages. You're also going to see me doing a lot of parrying in this one, just because I kind of want to get into the flow of parrying before the rogue class comes out. So I decided to pick up this parry dagger, and you will see me pick up a rapier that I keep for, I believe, most of the run. But get a pretty decent mace here, decided to pick it up. I think I actually ended up picking up 2 daggers at some point. If this was the dual wield update, I would already be able to, you know, do some really funny stuff. But yeah, we got some armor. We're just kind of looting, killing enemies. So here you're going to see me. I think I parry this guy. Yeah, just try to get the parry timing down. So if you're using a short sword, I'm going to be honest with you, the short sword and the long sword come with the ability to parry. I don't recommend parrying at all whatsoever, because with parry daggers and rapiers, you actually have a much better parry frame and parry timing to where you can reactively parry, whereas with the other ones you kind of have to preemptively parry. And it's obviously a lot harder to know when something is going to happen at a specific time rather than just react to it, right? So I found out that you can parry whips. I don't think that you should be able to, because I feel like in real life, how is a dagger parrying a whip? And I feel like Estev references like logic and things that make sense a lot. So me personally, I don't think it makes sense, so it just never really occurred to me that you could. But he explained that anything that is physical in this game can be parried. You can parry arrows, like actual physical arrows. If they're enchanted or something, I don't recommend trying to parry them. But if it is a physical arrow shot out of like a crossbow militiaman, you can try parrying that. But honestly, I recommend just dodging those. If you just strafe left and right, especially if you're sprinting, generally they're not going to be hitting you. Save the parries for melee attacks. They tend to be a little bit more consistent. And again, focus on parries when you actually have the equipment that wants to focus on parries. If you're playing with a long sword, if you're playing with a short sword, play to your strengths. Kite. Use whatever you have at your disposal, but generally don't parry. Anyway, so here's where I'm going to start chopping stuff up. Fast forwarding anything that is a little bit of, you know, like too slow, too downtimey. But I do try to show off some of the chests that I open, some of the gear that I consider. Here's the rapier that I was talking about. Even if you're not parrying, I think the sheer damage output that the rapier can put out is quite good. So it's very similar to a mace in the sense that it has an infinite combo. So you can crank out a lot of damage like that. But it's a stabby weapon instead, right? Now, in my opinion, in Souls games, I think rapiers feel like ass. But in this game, they actually feel quite good, because the more that you can space your opponent, the more that you can keep them at like the maximum distance, the better that it feels, right? So here, I messed up a couple parries. Again, I'm super sleep deprived at the time of recording this. I'm honestly even still sleep deprived at the time of commentating over this. All I've really done is have a coffee. But I wanted to get the commentary out there as quick as possible, just because this run is still relatively fresh in my mind. And I feel like if I try commentating over this tomorrow, for example, I'm not really going to remember a lot that happened. Especially because I was so tired, right? So yeah, we're just going through stage 1. And I do end up cutting out pretty much anything that isn't new or that you guys haven't seen yet. I mean, you can tell how sleep deprived I am, because that guy in the center of the room it took so long for my brain to register that guy as a legitimate piece of terrain, right? I thought he was just like a visual prop. No, he's not visual. He's legitimately blocking me from moving, and my brain just took so long to process that. So, again, I'm very tired. Love it when you open up a chest and you get literally nothing out of it. It is what it is. But that's kind of the beauty of adventure. You just kind of play with what you're given, and if you get nothing, then you're just gonna have to make it work, man. It is how it is. Short sword of blight. So I play with this for a little bit, but I end up actually taking back the rapier at some point because I just prefer the moveset. So what I'm thinking in my head is you need some sort of status to play the game. This game becomes really, really difficult if you're just trying to plow through it with raw damage, because the bosses and some of the tougher enemies pretty much demand that you apply some sort of status to them. And if they happen to be immune to what you're doing, it becomes really hard to play. So I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, well, I'll just use both, right? I'll use the short sword of blade, put the status on them. It's a long-lasting status effect, and then afterwards I can switch to the rapier, which has the better moveset and parries. So, you know, parries are obviously really powerful. They get you free crits. They give you like a lunge attack on the enemy. But I end up just dropping the short sword entirely in favor of, I think, a bow that I find. Did I already find it? I don't think I found it yet. But basically, I take a weapon that I never end up using just because it comes with stats that I really like, right? And you can see right now my vigor bar is really, really high, and I'm pretty happy with that. That means that I can delve comfortably into magic. It means I can delve comfortably into, say I find like a short bow. The short bows have this special attack where you can basically fire off arrows in rapid succession, but they're going to use your stamina meter to do so, right? The more stamina that you have, the more of those arrows that you can shoot off really fast. So I'm just kind of debating what I pick up here. I think I end up taking a scroll, a helmet, but you can see here, like, I'm going back and forth debating like whether or not I should even be taking this short sword of blight. We find a secret, that's always nice. If you're looking for crevices on the wall, chances are you're probably also going to find the loose stone that you can push to get a secret. There's also a dagger that I picked up at some point that's imbued with like a fireball. Feels pretty good. I decided to take the spell rod of healing because healing is pretty limited in this game sometimes. And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, I want to use my potions for an actual boss fight, right? So what I can do is I can just take the spell rod of healing. It's not great because unlike the Friar, the cooldown on it is pretty freaking long. But if nothing else, it should be enough to make it so that I don't have to blow my actual healing potions. And look at how much text this shield has. Holy crap. I end up taking the shield because it is imbued with magical properties. It has a spell on it that I really like. Also, I mean, I don't think I ever end up using the spike shield aspect of it, but just the fact that it isn't brittle, so it'll never break, is good enough for me. And then at this point, I pretty much have the loadout I want. Tons of magic in my loadout. And I also get the easiest stage 1 boss. In my opinion, this is one of the only stage 1 bosses that you can legitimately just absolutely run down. You can see I start off with a really big burst of damage, and then I absolutely just rip him apart as soon as he gets close to me. Rapier's infinite combo feels super good. To be honest, I would say my stage 1 had some really, really awesome loot, and I was super happy with what I got. And I'm especially happy with how unbelievably big my stamina bar is right now. So the way I see it is stamina in this game is really the only thing that matters, right? Like, obviously having health is important, but when your stamina bar runs out in the middle of a fight, you pretty much just die, right? So the way I see it is health doesn't matter until it reaches 0, right? It's kind of like you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! Your life points don't matter until they reach 0, right? So you can do whatever you want with your life points. You can pay half your life points. You can drop yourself down to 1 life point. It doesn't matter. As long as you haven't died yet, you're chilling. But if your stamina bar runs out, you're completely screwed. Like, that is how you die, right? Having 0 stamina in front of a really, really tough enemy is the same as effectively dying, right? It's like you're playing League of Legends. If you triple inhib the enemy, that's almost as good as winning the game, right? So definitely try to keep your stamina up. If your stamina is super high, it indirectly kind of translates to being, I don't want to say tankier, but it just lets you play fights a lot better, right? The more stamina you have, the more that you can dedicate to using on enchantments that have to take up your stamina meter in order to be casted. The better you're going to be with spell slinging, the better you're going to be with certain range weapons, the more effective you're going to be at running from things, and you're going to be doing a lot of running in this game, especially as the adventurer, who starts with literally nothing, right? If you're playing like the Pyromancer, yeah, you are also going to be running, but like you can also just blast everything that you see, for the most part. There are some exceptions, but the adventurer, like, you know, I don't have a flamethrower that I can just point at enemies whenever I feel threatened, right? I actually have to like play fights, kite them out, parry them, play around my other spell cooldowns. So yeah, I think having a big stamina bar is really important. So that's why that bow that came with extra vigor, even though I don't plan on using arrows at all in this run, I took it literally just because it gave me an extra point of stamina. I actually thought this was a basic skeleton enemy, so I run straight at him, he starts fighting me back, and I'm like, oh crap, oh crap. But then you can see I got a couple crits in on him. Not too worried about him, I just kind of blast him with a fireball. Fire magic is really good in this game. But yeah, pretty scary enemy in a room with basically nothing in it. And here I'm just kind of trying to find my way, and I think I'm going to run into a very, very scary encounter really soon here. But first I'm going to clear out all this random rabble. Rabble? Is that what you call, like, basic enemies? We're going to clear out all these, like, random little ads, right? The reason why I like to clear everything in these rooms that I go through is because, yeah, generally speaking, if this was a game like Raven's Watch and I was playing on Nightmare, I'd think to myself, like, I don't need to fight these guys. They're not contesting anything, so I'm not going to. The thing is, in this game, you have to run from a lot of fights, and what you, like, the way that you should be running from these fights is you should be backtracking. Like, look at how bad this is, right? If I ran back into that room and those 4 pushy dudes were still in there, they could very easily push me into this weird, like, pus zombie that has like a black hole aura where he like pulls you towards him, right? And he's next to a bunch of mosquitoes. They're all going to be bleeding you. When you're bled, you can't regain stamina, so like you don't want to get CC'd. And I decided to actually learn from my mistakes that happened in the last run with Adventurer, where I just got blasted by one of these traps, and I just lead the enemies into them and use it as a tool of destruction. So definitely play around with the environment. Make sure that you kill things in the room behind you. Sorry about the spinning. I was listening to drum and bass. I was having a good time, but I wanted to wait out my cooldown, so I just kind of spun in place a little bit until my healing rod came back. But yeah, we heal ourselves up. Again, another reason that stamina is so good. You can just kind of channel spells for a really long time, like that healing spell. Another reason why I just don't think you should be using Bolster on Friar unless you really, really have to. Like, it's a super bad boss fight, but even in boss fights, like, the more stamina you have, the more effective you are. So honestly, just don't Bolster. Unless it gets buffed, I think Bolster just sucks. I end up using it here in this run at some point because I do find a spell rod of Bolster, but honestly, just don't. I would say it actually hurt me more to Bolster, even with how much stamina I had. These enemies are scary. When their shield is imbued with ice, you don't want to attack into them. You want to first... Oh, wow, what the hell happened there? Jeez, I was trying so hard to parry that guy. But yeah, when their shield is imbued with ice like that, you want to hit them with some sort of attack. It can be ranged, as far as I'm aware. That's going to remove the ice enchantment from the shield. It's then going to explode, and if you're in range, it's going to freeze you. And obviously, I don't think I need to explain why being frozen in this game is super bad. So just try to remove the frozen enchantment from the shield first, and then go back in on that enemy. After that, he's pretty much just like a basic knight. Not too hard. I debate if I wanted to pick up a shield or not, but I kind of like the fact that my shield currently is imbued with a spell that I really like, so I just decided to leave his. But I honestly would have if I didn't have the shield. Oh, whoa, scary. Yeah, so these guys, honestly, I haven't really figured out what the strategy is for them, so all I can really say is kite them. When you get on top of them, they like to do an explosion, so I would recommend just playing from range. Don't get close to these guys. I try freezing him. Apparently he's immune to freezing. I guess that makes sense because he is perpetually on fire. And then I try to parry him, and it gets kind of ugly because his attacks come out a little more delayed. So I was expecting him to come out a lot faster, kind of like a what are their name? Like longsword armored knights. I was expecting him to come out at kind of that speed. So I whiff a couple parries and I just decide it's not worth it. I make another mistake. I actually kite upwards away from the enemy instead of back to the room where I had previously cleared out. So I end up running into that mosquito knight, mosquito priest, whatever the hell you want to call him. And that could have also been a really ugly encounter with both of those enemies on me at the same time. I did say this is like probably the easiest priest, but I still don't think that you want to fight him with one of these like hellfire demons running straight at you, right? So there, I try to freeze him. I'm not sure what happened to my spell. It kind of like freaked out and I just hit air. But once this guy's dead, I go in on the dude behind him and then we just sort of clean up. Looking good, feeling good. Just kind of plowing through the dungeon here. Another kettle hat, but it's worse than the one I have. And then here we find a scroll of Starsight. I actually really like this. Lets you see in the dark. I could cancel it when I get into the boss room, but to be honest, I don't remember how dark the boss room was, so I kind of just left it on in the boss room in case, you know, for whatever reason, the boss room is like pitch black or something. Like if I'm fighting the Demon of Blood, that's a really, really, really dark room. So it's nice to be able to see across the entire arena. But obviously it's also going to be good within the dungeon. So I'm like, screw it, just use it. I have a ton of stamina, might as well. Tome of Thundering Storm. It's not awful, but like the spells like Bonfire and Blizzard and what's the other one? Thunderstorm. The ones that just kind of like drop a small thing in place that just constantly applies that status effect. They would be fine if they had better like tracking of the enemies, but when you initially target the enemy and you drop it onto them, it's gonna drop it in that exact moment where the enemy is, right? It's not going to track their movement so that they take the damage if the enemy is walking towards you, right? You're going to end up casting the spell slightly behind them, and once the enemies see the spell effect there, they're not just going to walk into it, right? They're always going to path around it. So you need to find some sort of goofy way to like get them to go back into it, and that's just too much of a headache for me. So I decide not worth it, just leave it. I don't really want to try to like kite the enemies around my weird AoE. It's kind of hard to charge them in boss fights as well, the spell I mean, so there's a good chance that you just end up hitting yourself with your own spell. Not worth it, just leave it. I kind of like what I already have. Here we're just going through some rooms, killing some basic enemies, trying to find some better loot. I've already found the Vitae Flame, so I can honestly just leave at this point. But, whoa, what happened there? Those guys messed me the hell up. So I could just leave, but still looking for some better loot. Maybe I find something like game-changing, but I think this is more or less the build that I end up taking to the boss. There's a ghost. That guy would have been really hard to see if I didn't have multiple light sources at this point. That's something that I hope the dev fixes, by the way. So I had my Ice Mine spell that follows me around, but because I had to interact with the crevice in the wall, and the button to interact is also the button that detonates these mines, I ended up just detonating my mine when I tried to stick my hand in the crevice in the wall. feel like this shouldn't be the case. I really feel like I can just stick my hand in there without popping my spell. It wasn't too bad because the shield that I was using didn't have it on like a ridiculous cooldown, but a lot of times when you find enchanted weapons, you're gonna find the spell on a huge cooldown, so... I know there's an enemy in here. I'm just trying to play it a little safe. What ends up happening is I try picking up the Scroll of Firebolt, but I picked up the wrong scroll, and I end up casting Scroll of Mending, right? And my brain just isn't registering it. Like, hey, why is this spell taking so long to cast? I swear Firebolt doesn't take this long to cast. So, yeah, I just ended up casting a Spell of Mending. I wanted to save that for the final boss, but it is what it is, I guess. It's not like it's going to be wasted against the stage 2 boss, right? But, yeah, if you're wondering why that fight looked as weird as it did, that was why. But we end up winning the run anyway, so I'm not too bummed out about it. And the music that is currently playing in the video is actually the same music that I was listening to in the middle of the run. I just needed something to keep me awake, because while I do think it's better that you play this game with the audio up so that you can hear stuff like ghosts through the walls or certain enemies like the weird blood demons that have like the whip hands, those guys make like a really distinct eldritch horror sound that makes them easier to, you know, kind of hear through a wall or something. Ghosts, you want to hear them whispering through a wall, so I do recommend play this game with the audio up, not blasting drum and bass, but I really just needed to stay awake, so I kind of just forced myself to deal with it. Oh, these guys are really scary, by the way. I don't recommend just running at them with a freaking melee weapon like I did. I was just feeling myself. Don't do that. Definitely play it slow. If you have a bow, deal with them from range. And when I say range, I mean like big range, because those guys can be pretty lethal even at range. But I just don't recommend getting like up in their face like that. I guess if you have a good loadout to rush them down, go for it. I was feeling pretty confident, but to be honest, I should have just kept my rapier. The Axe of Cold isn't really doing it for me, so I end up switching it here for this Short Sword of Blood just because it has a little bit of a faster moveset. The battle axes are mainly for like hordes of enemies when you get swarmed, but to be honest, they also kind of suck at that, so I really just don't recommend picking them up if you can help it. It's not a terrible weapon, like, it's probably better than a basic short sword, but like, is it better than a Short Sword of Blood? Yeah, hard to say, right? Although in this case, I guess it would have been, because I don't even think this boss can be bled. This is terrifying, by the way. These guys could have very easily frozen me into those traps, and I would have just had a repeat of what happened in my adventurer run. I think these traps are insanely OP, and they need some sort of nerf, in my honest opinion. Dying to traps in this game, I mean, like, getting hit by the traps, I get, but dying because the trap chained you into a wall and just kept hitting you over and over and over, or because you got frozen on a trap, like, that sucks, man. That is such a lame way to die. But yeah, pretty much have the loadout that I want. I decide to take a little bit of time, look at my loadout, familiarize myself with what I'm going to be doing. You know, even if you are rested and you feel like you have an idea of what your game plan looks like, open up your menu, see what items you have, see kind of how you want to play, refamiliarize yourself with your loadout. It's going to make the fight a little bit easier and give you a little bit of a burst of confidence once you know what tools you have at your disposal, right? So I have fought this guy before and he completely fisted me and I had no idea what was happening. So I do decide to take this one a bit slower, but I did review the footage and I kind of have an idea of how to fight him. So he's gonna drop these little like ice rings that explode on top of you like that. They do track you, so you have to like kind of circle strafe around him. And the other move that he's gonna do is he's gonna summon these little ice shards that track you. Make sure you're strafing, Don't stand still. Don't walk in a straight line because they move pretty freaking fast. And they can crit you if they hit you from the back, which is how I died. I really didn't see them. I really wasn't paying attention to them. They are admittedly a little hard to see if you don't know what to look for. So what ends up happening is you focus on the boss, you decide you want to rush him down, and then you get pelted in the back of the head by a bunch of ice rocks, right? It's not what you want. So I'm playing it a little slow. Kind of the way that I like to play the final boss of the game is I like to play it slow, look for an opening. I would say, even though I think this guy is harder than Demon of Bone, I would say I prefer his fight just because you get like a proper arena to fight him in, whereas Demon of Bone, or not Demon, sorry, the Priest of Bone. The Priest of Bone, it's a little rougher because I wouldn't really call the area that you fight him in an arena. It's sort of just like a really thin rectangular room where you want to get past the enemies, but they're always going to be in range to hit you, even if you like bolt past them, right? Here you can actually circle strafe around them, space them, and it feels pretty good. But you have to be very careful because with this boss, the adds can be avoided, but he's going to be inflicting you with chill. If he hits you with chill, you are completely screwed. It's going to turn into a bunch of attacks from the adds because they're going to have time to catch up to you. Make sure you're paying attention to the ghost. The ghost can be hard to spot in this room if you don't have a decent life source. That's also another thing that happened to me before. And just kind of wait for your opportunity. I go for a fireball spell there because my ice spell isn't affecting him, so I figure fire must. He stands in my bleed puddle a little bit. I'm not actually sure if that damaged him or not. I don't think he can be bled, but I think he took the damage over time from the ravenous flies. And here he just kind of like splits himself off from his adds for a little bit, so I get a couple hits in on him, play it slow, space the adds. This is another fight I would have absolutely freaking hated doing with the Friar because he's slow. You want to make sure that you have a lot of speed, a lot of stamina to try to kite out fights like that where the amount of movement that you can do is really important, right? So that felt pretty good. Finally killed the Demon of Bone. I recommend just taking it slow, strafe in a circle, wait for your opportunity. If you have fire, that felt pretty good. Don't know if he can be blighted. Kind of wish I kept that short sword of blight just to kind of see, but honestly I wouldn't count on it. Ended up picking up a whip here just because I want to have a ranged option since I didn't end up using the bow for anything. I dropped the bow because I feel like I have enough stamina even without it, and I decided to pop the Ice Shard spell here. If you have this spell coming into this boss, it makes this boss 10 times easier. It doesn't matter if you have the upgraded version like I have now or if you have the downgraded version. This spell is going to work wonders. The little ice shards that kind of hover around you and you can launch them, really, really good. The reason I recommend them is because he is going to put up a spell shield around him deep enough into the fight, and you need to remove that before you can ever go in on him. I go for a melee punish. Honestly, probably not the best move there. I took a lot of free damage, but I have a ton of potions. I'm not really worried about this guy. I feel like I have a really good build for dealing with him specifically. Really, all you need is the icicles and some other form of range, right? Hit him with fire. He takes some good damage over time. He spaces incorrectly, so I end up just gunning for him before he can cast any spells at me. Launch all the icicles into him. Just absolutely pelting him with them. And just kind of ignore the adds. Shoot an icicle there to remove the spell shield. Dodge his spell. Pelt him into the trap. But I did get a little over ambitious And then I kind of tried to fix my screw up with grabbing a health off the wall. It didn't work out, so I'm like, screw it, I'll just pop my potion. In this fight, you could get frozen, you could get charged, you could get chained between a ton of enemies, and if you're not full health, there's a very good chance that one mistake could just spell your death. So I'm like, screw it, I want to be at full health. This guy's almost dead. I'm just gonna pop my potion and just pelt him with icicles, and there we go. That's the win. So yeah, that was an adventure when, like I said, I think this is the most fun way to play the game. Not necessarily the adventurer class, I think he's pretty boring, but playing with what you're given, I would say, is the way that you should be playing Into Evil. It is a looter dungeon crawler after all, so that's just my personal opinion. I hope for anybody that's struggling to get a win that this maybe helped you out a little bit, and if you have any questions, leave it in the comments.